Sponsor a child from the Dogon villages today. They are the future healers, leaders and preservers of Kemetic traditions. Just like Prophet Nebnaba, these children of the Earth Center and our network of healers are being educated in local schools in addition to their indigenous cultural practices and traditions. This comprehensive education both positions them to inherit the work of their forefathers and mothers and continues bridging the gap between traditional and modern societies. So go ahead, support, find out more about our campaigns and donate by going to www.theearthcenter.org. Thank you.
Even up to 100 AD.
Ujjayi Retnibs, and Retnib is the word for people. Correct. And Ujjayi is greeting. So yeah, Ujjayi, and welcome on the 15th of Renpenit, which is the, 422 in the sidereal, Kemetic sidereal calendar. And as you know, it's the 26th of April, 2023 of the Gregorian calendar. So this month is actually governed by the deity, Imen, Imen being the invisible one, and is the deity, the god that actually fights for the divine order within the universe. So we just want to say greetings to everyone, really. I am Biksaa, Nessebik, 4th generation, London, UK, temple.
And I am Yattepia here, 7th generation London Temple.
Yeah, we'd like to introduce as well our current affair and presenter, KaSheta. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Ujjayi Hatanis. Ujjayi. Yep.
How is it sounding? Is it low, or could you give us like a check to see how the volume and that is coming through? Can you hear us clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
You can. Can you hear us? All right, and we can. It's a bit low on our side, isn't it? Yeah. We work with it at the moment, then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. So we first want to acknowledge, say, the divine world, those who created the existence. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And we also want to acknowledge our ancestors in the world of the dead. And as we say, the ancestors all time, they're the ones that's responsible for our lives. So we owe it to them, really, and for taking us to where that we are now. Give thanks for and may they continue to guide and to protect us on this journey of life. We also want to acknowledge Master Naba Lumusa Morendenebig, or Prophet Nebnaba Lumusa Morendenebig, and he's the Kemetic Dogon High Priest and Healer. Now, we just turn up the volume. Yeah. So, who are the Dogons? We're just going to give you like a brief rundown, like of the history of how our school is based off the Dogon principles. And so our temple is, as we say, Master Naba is a Kemetic Dogon High Priest, and the Dogons are like, just go back into the history of like the invasion from the Persian, the Greeks, and the Romans, and that basically created the invasion of Asian Kemet, where certain important indigenous bloodlines migrated across the Sahara Desert and settled along the west coast of Africa. We know it as Merita. And we see them residing in places like Benin, Togo, Mali, Burkina Faso, along that west coast there. And there they hid really to preserve the knowledge. And so they've been there till this time here now, basically sitting back and just observing, like, say, the so-called conquerors and basically the direction that they're taking humanity in. Master Naba himself, as I said, is a Kemetic Dogon High Priest, and from a young age of about 8 years old, he actually started schooling and his initiation. Master Naba progressed and went further on to do further studies at Kenya University, and he was a man who was always learning, and he kept on, and he was also doing spiritual initiation, which he surpassed his masters to become like a very renowned Kemetic Dogon High Priest in the heart of Umtam science, and Umtam science is the heart of reading or the knowing of reading the earth energy, the Bayawali, the earth dialogue of energy. And so Master Neba, he was master in Egyptology and a master in the hieroglyphics. He studied, well, he was also versed in metaphysics and parapsychology. Master Neba wrote about 25 different books, some of which we use on our program here, which will be, we'll talk about a little bit about later on. He visited 120 odd different countries where he was invited to come and speak on many different spiritual events because he was very high in spirituality. And so with this ray of knowledge that Master Naba had, he was what we would say an activist, and he saw what was going on in the world. And so Master Naba sought permission from the Gulmore kingship, and they gave him permission to bring this knowledge here to us in the Western world. We see the need for it because we can see the direction that the Western world is taking humanity in. And so that was his quest, really, right, to try to change the mindset, to edify us in, rights and wrong, what is from what isn't. And so in 1996, he embarked on a journey here in the Western world and established the first temple, which was in Chicago, and went on further to open up another 2 temples there before going back to Merita, where he set up another temple there. And in 2008, Master Naba transitioned back to the ancestors. The Earth Center that he left behind has been continuing and is now kind of run by Naba Edita, and so he's the one that's pushing the school forward. Our school consists of 3 branches, and Yattepia, who is going to take you through the 3 different branches of the Earth Center. When you come into initiation, this is what you're going to be exposed to.
So, EJ, so just before I continue, just would like to just acknowledge the word of divine, the ancestors, my ancestors, and the Master Naba as well. So the 3 branches of the Earth Center are the School, the Firefly Productions, and the Projects of Merita. So the School is where individuals who are interested in taking part in traditional initiation, some of which Hattini Nehibsa has described, what Master Naba brought out to the West. If people are interested in taking part or going through initiation, the School is what provides that traditional Kemetic initiation. So within the School, there are 3 classes we offer. The Medu, Katibi, and Sunt. So the Medu is what the West would call the hieroglyphs, but we would recognise it as Medu, which is the original language of humanity. It's the oldest language known to humanity. It's a language that was given by the divine world to humanity. So within this class, we learn the Medu Ma'it. I know there are different types of Medu, but we learn the Medu Ma'it. And the Medu Ma'it is where what we call the common folk, the ordinary people, would speak that type of Medu. So within the class, it's kind of split into 2. So you have a theory part, and you also have a technical part. So within the theory part is where you learn the principles of our ancestors in terms of how they functioned. We understand, or we learn about the importance of a language. We learn that the language carries your culture, the norms of the society, and the standards of society. So the language does not just stay something we speak. It's an important part of everyday functioning. And then the next part of the class is the technical side, where you will learn how to read, write, and speak Medu. So you'll go step by step. So you'll learn how the different sounds, how to structure a sentence, how to write a sentence, to actually knowing how to actually do paragraphs, etc. So that's the Medu class. The Katibi class is where we would learn the spiritual aspect of the initiation, and within the Katibi class is where you would learn the different prayers that we would say, and these prayers go back to beyond 45,000 years. We learn how to do what we call our Zemzem, which is our lamentations to our ancestors. We also learn how we would purify ourselves, because we acknowledge once before we go in front of the divine world, we need to be physically clean and also spiritually clean as well. And the ablution is what helps us or enables us to do that. So we learn how to do that. We also learn the different holy days, one of which is tomorrow, which is a divine holy day. So we learn how to actually pray and connect with the divine world. So the Katibi is also where you learn what we call the Katibi poses, which the West would commonly call yoga poses, but we would call Katibi poses. And that's how we learn in terms of how, again, to connect with the divine world as well. The next class is the Sunt class. And this Sunt class is around, focuses on natural healing, how we can use herbs to heal ourselves. We also learn within Katibi the way in which the body functions, how to self-diagnose ourselves. We learn the different bodies, the systems within the body, how they interrelate with each other. And we also begin to learn about the Umtam science, which was mentioned earlier, in terms of reading the earth energies as well. So that's the initiation. So generally, the initiation, when individuals come in, it's normally an opportunity to come in. Normally takes place at least about once a year, once every 18 months, when what we call the doors of initiation open. And that's where people who are interested in going through initiation can actually come in, find out a bit more about the initiation, and then if they're interested, actually go through that initiation process. Okay, so we've recently had a generation come into the London Temple, and I know we have Hatini Biksaa in, and he'll maybe speak a little bit more about that in terms of the Coventry or in opportunities to go through initiation for our commentary, but I'll leave him to speak about that. The next branch is the Firefly Productions. And Firefly Productions is the production arm or publishing arm of the Earth Centre, and that's where we produce all our books, calendars, posters, CDs, DVDs, the Rising Firefly magazines, all these publications done by initiates and published by us. So as we mentioned earlier, one of the books that we'll be reading from this evening is the Initiatic Tales of Hejpata, and this is a book of short stories, short proverbs, which we would use within initiation, but also are used in the initiation camps as well. We also have what we call the Book of Purification. Again, sorry, that book is written by Master Naba, and the Book of Purification is also written by Master Naba. And as I mentioned earlier, the ablutions is an important part of our spiritual development and spiritual growth. And that book gives people an opportunity to find out how to do the ablution. If they're not currently in initiation and would like to go through the process of cleaning themselves, they can learn how to do that. Or if they're thinking about coming to initiation, want to start the process, they can read that book. And that basically takes you step by step in terms of the different areas of the body that you would clean, what you would say when you're cleaning it, and also gives you the prayers that I mentioned earlier, how you would say those prayers as part of that process as well. So that is a little bit about the Book of Purification. We also have the sidereal calendar, which is mentioned a bit earlier in terms of the date today from the sidereal calendar from a Kemetic point of view. And the sidereal calendar is the oldest calendar known to humanity. It's based on the Sirius star, the cycle of the Sirius star, which has a perfect cycle of 1,000. My mind's gone blank. 1461. Thank you. 1461. A perfect cycle of 1,461 years. So in terms of that, though, what we mean by that is it has a perfect cycle. So every time it starts at one position, goes back to that same position in the same time frame, 1,461 years. So that is what the calendar is based on. And each week we have a deckhand, which we would run to. So each month has 3 decans, so 3 weeks of 10 days, and each week has 2 holy days. So we have an ancestral holy day, and we also have a divine holy day, which is tomorrow as well. So that calendar gives you an opportunity to try and get yourself in line with also the divine world and your ancestors as well, and nature as well, and in terms of just how to kind of orientate yourself in time and space as well. And we also have a number of posters, one of which is the 77 commandments, and these are the commandments that was given to the divine world, to humanity, for us to find a way of functioning on Earth. So originally, as humanity, we were very barbaric. We weren't weren't able to get on with each other in that way. And the divine world was looking at us, thinking we weren't really couldn't really see what point we had on Earth, and then our ancestral God was advocated for us, and divine world gave humanity some instructions and codes to live by, which is the 77. So as initiates, that's the code of behaviour that we live by, and some of that we will be speaking about this evening as well, in terms of some of those codes and behaviour principles as well. So that's a little bit about the Fly Fly Productions. But again, if you want any more information, please do go online, which I'll give the information about a little bit, in terms of just finding out different products, the prices, etc. And the final arm is the Projects of Merita. And the Project of Merita's focus is maintaining and also revitalising traditional Kemetic culture. So as I mentioned earlier, Master Nabo is someone who was born in tradition, functioned in tradition, and what the Project of Merita is aiming to do is to maintain those traditional cultures and also enable them to continue to function. And as initiates, we get an opportunity to go back to those villages and those cultures every year for our initiation, and the importance of maintaining those villages and those individuals is actually they hold the knowledge, they hold the culture, and that's why it's important to try and maintain that and revitalise those. So we have a number of projects that the Nebfest Centre supports. We have well-building projects. Also, we have temple restoration projects. We have traditional farming projects. We also have a children's fund project, which is enabling children who've gone through the traditional initiation to actually attend colonial schools, for them to be able to function in both worlds. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, the Projects Merita is the arm that deals with pilgrimage. And pilgrimage is an opportunity for both initiates and non-initiates to go and spend some time in traditional villages and see what the culture is from a real life point of view. So so that's a little bit about the 3 arms. So if you are interested and want to find out a little bit more about the Earth Centre, we have a temple in London, and we are based in Leighton, and we're based at 21 Sunnyside Road, Leighton, E10 7BB. And our telephone number there is 0208 558 3678. Just give that quickly again. 0208 558 3678. And we also have a sister temple in Coventry. And their address in Coventry is 18 Biggin Hill Crescent. And that's Coventry. CV3 1GS. And their contact number is 0204 7626 6859. So that's 024 7626 6859, and their mobile number is 073 0599 5944. So that's 073 0599 5944. And our email address, if you do want to contact us by email, is inquiries-uk@theearthcentre.org. And centre is spelt CENTER. And our website address internationally is theearthcentre.org. And as it is, the centre is spelled CETER. And the London Temple this coming Saturday has an event called as part of the Wisdom of the Nile monthly lecture event, and this month's lecture is on the origin of holidays. So just finding out a little bit about where the holidays come from, what the background of the holidays, and that takes place at the London Temple, which is 21 Sunnyside Road, and that is between 6:30 and 8:30, and the takes place within the temple, and it's £7 on the door. And also tickets can be purchased on Eventbrite as well. So if you just put the Earth Centre in the search bar in Eventbrite, all our upcoming lectures and events will come up in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. No. But what's the one?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Just before we kind of hand over to the current events section, just want to last Saturday was the 30th anniversary of Stephen Lawrence's murder, and just wanted to kind of just reflect on that in terms of just recognizing his spirit, and if you don't know who Stephen Lawrence was, he was an 18-year-old young man who was killed in southeast London by 5 individuals, and it was kind of a long process in terms of trying to get some kind of level of justice, and I won't go into that this evening, but it's more kind of recognising the 30-year anniversary of him, and also kind of his spirit, but also his family in terms of the energy and resilience they put in terms of trying to find some level of justice and also remembrance for him as well, and it's also recognising all the other families that kind of have experienced, have losses, whether it's at the hand of other individuals within this police, the system, etc. Just recognising their struggles and trying to bring justice for their individuals, but also trying to remember their family members in the best way possible. So I just wanted to make sure we put that out there as well. Dua.
Okay, same dua for that, yeah. And on that note, we're going to be coming over now, or passing it over to our current affair presenter, KaSheta per Nebfest. Do you want to like to take the chair? Ujai,
Yes, Ujai. Ujai, I'm in the chair. Yes, I'd like to say Ujai to all of you, Hatani Nahispa, Yattepia, and also Hatani Biksaa. And also greetings to our wider Wisdom of the Nile family and also Bless FM family. It's great to be here. But before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my ancestors in this time and space, and also divine reverence to the divine world. Okay, so as we know, my name is KaSheta per Nebfest. I'm from the 8th generation of initiates of the London branch of the Temples of KaSheta. Right, KaSheta, my first name, means I have the spirit of the God of mysteries. And my last name, Nebfest, informs that I'm from the house of the goddess Nebfest, or Nephthys. Right, so if you don't mind today, I'm just going to go straight into my topic. I won't be hanging around, today. It's quite a short topic, right? And it's basically asking a question and asking it in my quite blunt way, and the question is Western society a society of drug addicts? Yeah, you wasn't expecting that, was you? Yeah.
Sorry, just
Right.
sorry, Sen. Just say that again. He kind of lost you a little bit. Just say that again.
Okay, so my question is Western society a society of drug addicts? Right, and I'll go into a bit why I'm asking this question. Right, but personally, I'm familiar with drugs being around. I grew up in London. And weed was always in the community, when I was growing up. It was the norm to see, weed being used mainly for medicinal purposes and so forth, But the law at the time said it was a dangerous drug. And during my teenage years, I should say, I witnessed many of my friends get a criminal record for smoking weed, Then I noticed the laws changed, and it, to it being like a criminal offense if you just sold it. Then it was a criminal offense if you had a certain amount of it on your person, But my point is the laws on drugs, they seem to change to whatever the government decides, when they feel like it. You know, because one minute it's like a dangerous drug, next minute it depends on how much you have on you, whether you're selling it or, you know, it just changes as they feel like. You know, so people are labeled as criminals, you know, fined or even locked up because the government in power will make a decision, you know. But what really is their decision based on? Now, personally, I'm also very familiar with pharmaceutical medications, you know, and basically I call these the government's legal drugs, you know, and a lot of these drugs mainly are tested out on human beings, you know, to record the effects before a decision is actually made to either continue its use, or whether to ban its use. You know, but it's usually tested out on human beings before, you know, they make this decision. And then some countries will get the memo before others, and then some countries don't even get the memo at all. So you notice that, like in some like African countries, they're still using drugs that have been banned in Europe. You know, so obviously they didn't get the memo. You know, but nobody in the UK, you know, actually faces any kind of criminal charges, you know, for the sale or possession of dangerous drugs. So it's not really my personal opinion on weed that's the issue that I'm talking about. You know, I'm really talking about drugs on the whole. You know, so when I was thinking about this, because it stemmed from a cup of coffee. You know, I asked myself, what actually is a drug? So you know me, so I looked it up. Trusty Google Calendar, which informed me, you know, that a drug, right? So I'm going to quote not calendar, the dictionary. I mean, you know, a drug is any chemical substance that causes a change in an organism, physiology or psychology when consumed. All right, so I'll just say that again because I'm sure I, you know, didn't read that right. It causes a change in any organism, physiology or psychology when consumed. Right. So what is consumption? So consumption can be, you know, inhalation, injection, smoking, you know, eating it, you know, ingestion. It could be absorption, you know, from a patch on the skin. It could be suppositories, or it can even be, you know, dissolution under the tongue. So all of that, you know, comes under consumption, you know. And drugs are typically distinguished from food and substances that provide nutritional support. So they say the food and, you know, industry is not drugs, right? There's a difference, right? But in pharmacology, a drug is a chemical substance typically of a known structure, which when administered to a living organism, produces a biological effect, you know. So a pharmaceutical drug is also called a medication or medicine, you know, and is a chemical substance which they use to treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose a disease, or to promote well-being. So that is what they do in pharmacology. And traditionally, drugs were obtained through extraction from medicinal herbs and plants, but more recently, also by using organic synthesis, which basically means that in a lab they extract the components of the active ingredients and then combine them with bulking agents, so that they're now no longer are they natural, you know, and now they're sold as pharmaceutical drugs, you know, which can be used for a limited period, you know, or even on a regular basis, basically if you've got a chronic disorder. So you could be on these things for life, you know. Right, so pharmaceutical drugs are often classified in drug classes. I'm not going to go through all of the groups, you know, but they come in groups of related drugs that have a similar chemical structures, you know, and they're used to treat the same or similar diseases. Right, so today I just want to concentrate on the psychoactive drugs. You know, so these are substances that affect the function of the central nervous system, which, you know, basically altering perception, mood, and consciousness. You know, so I hope that you're with me so far, because I know I'm a bit jumbled today.
No,
Right?
that's fine. That's going through. Yeah, sounds good.
Right. So these drugs are divided up into different groups, like stimulants. Then there's some depressants. There's antidepressants. The one that, you know, for anxiety, There's also antipsychotics and hallucinogens, you know. Now, Google also informs me that these psychoactive drugs have been proven useful in treating a wide range of medicinal conditions, including mental disorders around the world. And statistically, the most widely used drugs in the world include caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol, which are also considered recreational drugs since they are used for pleasure rather than medicinal purposes. You know, and we all know that all drugs have potential side effects or blatant side effects. You know, and they say the abuse of several psychoactive drugs can cause addiction or physical dependence, and excessive use of these stimulants can promote or stimulate psychosis, basically meaning lunacy, insanity, or madness. All right. So, come to my question now. So, basically, if your daily habit is to start the day as they promote, like with a couple of strong cups of tea or coffee, you know, then you're drinking coffee or tea throughout the day while smoking your cigarettes. Then you finish up the day with a couple of alcoholic drinks. Then you have to know that you're addicted. And according to my Google dictionary, you may be suffering from insanity. And we remember, a person who's insane doesn't really know they're insane. You know, so I'll finish up by saying that although coffee has been banned in 5 separate periods in the UK, I looked this up because I went on a tour a few years ago, but I thought I'd look up some dates, right? In the 1750s and in the 1800s, being between 1756 to 1761. Then there was 1766 to 69, 1794 to 96, 1799 to 1802, and then 1817 to 1823. You know, so I can note that 1823, and note that there's been a full 200 years of uninterrupted legalization, you know, of coffee. You know, then we have tobacco, which was introduced in England in the 16th century, you know, and at a time it was reported to have a huge and varied medicinal properties, and its use was commonplace in the 17th century, you know, and how can I put this, like the declaration, I should say, of the relationship between smoking and contracting lung cancer didn't come until 1957. So it's been a full 50 years, you know, because it was July 2007 that the only deterrent the UK gave, you know, with this knowledge was to ban smoking in public places and to no longer advertise its use. You know, so I won't even bother going to alcohol because that would take up the whole evening. But I think what I've gotten from all of this, right, and my point with my suggestion that according to these findings that many UK residents are considered drug addicts with mental health issues, and they're being encouraged with psychoactive drugs from the moment they wake up and throughout the day. Because if you're drinking coffee, smoking cigarette, drinking alcohol all the way through the day, then according to what I've just said, it's lunacy, you know, you're dependent, you know. So I would love to hear what others think about this subject. Is Britain a nation of addicts? And why are some psychoactive drugs legal and why are some not? And I'm asking you, Mahatanis, what do you think? What say you?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, we see that in the UK here. It's quite a few people. I think they said there's about 90 or 96 million or something like that people, or no, 96 million cups of coffee is drunk every day in the UK here, which is a lot of coffee, really.
Yeah.
And I know you was talking about having the people are having these extra shots in it to kind of strengthen it even more, you know. Now, they say tea still is a bigger, is more popular still than coffee, and you know that's got tannin and everything else in it. So that's another tea or herb that should be looked upon as well. It's not so much the coffee though, really, isn't it? It's the caffeine.
The caffeine that's in it.
Damage.
Yeah.
That's the addiction, really, isn't it? And we see in things like you're talking about them extracting things. where you have drinks like Coca-Cola, Red Bull, and how people have really got addicted on these caffeine products, byproducts as well, you know. And there was something about, as you mentioned there before, it is an addiction now within the UK. But I also noticed as well, really, right, they're saying that pregnant women, because they got like a limit of how much coffee, there's like a safe limit. I think they're saying there's about 400 milliliter or something like that, or milligram of caffeine, or that you can consume every day within that safe zone. But they're also saying, really, right, that if a woman is pregnant, and she's drinking up to 3 cups of coffee a day, what they've noticed is that there's been a lot of miscarriages and low birth weight.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, it is impacting on people, and that is that kind of when we look out there, you drive past the McDonald's, the Costco, and Starbucks, and these places early in the morning, and there's a long queue.
Yeah.
There's a long queue.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and as you say, it is the caffeine, because if you was to leave the coffee bean in its natural state and just boil it and drink the water from that, I don't think it would be, so detrimental to the body, because the whole bean is there. But it's when they start playing with things and extracting parts of things and
Yeah.
leaving other things out, that's when we have an issue. And it's the caffeine that is the thing that they want, from
because
the
it's like they
coffee.
would say again, like the caffeine itself, it has certain compounds in it,
Yeah.
right, that acts as prebiotics, and that could be beneficial, like say to bacteria and things in the digestive system,
Yeah.
and so in everything is that there's that error set, isn't there?
Yeah.
But what they're saying is that addiction is becoming stronger and stronger, and people are consuming more and more of it on a daily basis. Hence why now they're putting themselves in positions where they're prone to heart attacks and all these other different medical conditions that you see people are going through nowadays. And
Yeah.
and we are seeing more of these shops and things opening up out there on the high street, and we do see our
Yeah.
children and things spending a lot of money and time in there. It's the new
Yeah.
hype, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the fact that coffee's been banned so many times
Yeah.
in the UK, so they know what it's doing, what it does. They ban it, bring it back, ban it, bring it back. For the last 200 years, it's had, not been banned, uninterrupted. So I assume it's the revenue that it's bringing in, but yet still, and nobody's getting a criminal record, but yet still you've got people, and I'm not saying it's right to smoke or drink or whatever, but they pick and choose what they want
Yeah. Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
out there, and they make that decision, and people can be criminalized,
Mm.
but coffee.
And this is going to lead into our topic, really, right? This is where the dishonesty within society, where they're pushing out, they're telling you should be good, and yet they're the devils, they're the demons out there, really, right? That's creating half of the problem that people are actually kind of suffering with, because
Yeah.
they're legally bringing it in. Me and you can't, if we were to
Yeah.
probably, we can't do that. So we can see it's a legal tender, isn't it?
Yes, right. And then you've got the pharmaceuticals to mop up the problem, of what the issues that have been caused. So it's like it's a long stream of revenue of messing up people. But I think that they do have people hooked as drug addicts. You've got the tobacco that's legal, you've got the alcohol that's legal. All of these obvious, causes problems. Obviously, to the naked eye, you can see it, but that's fine.
I mean,
But
for
yeah,
who is, do you know who's the biggest consumer then of coffee, in terms of the intake of coffee?
no, you're asking me if I know,
Yeah, yeah.
or are you going to tell me? I hope you're going to tell me.
No, it was I know it's probably one of these foreign countries. I mean, probably not like yeah, but yeah. there is
Are
a
you
lot
talking
of,
about the
I know there was
biggest
something, there was a
importers?
statistic there to say that is it that 90% of adults in the world consumes coffee or caffeine, and that's high, really, isn't it? But then you see, it's been put in
Yeah.
so much different byproducts and things out there that you don't even realize that you're actually getting it,
Hmm.
but you are, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, you know, it's an awareness for people
But the
to
fact that
look
we
out
do,
for it and try to be mindful and conscious, right? That they're not overindulging in certain things, that because it's there on the shelf, you know, it doesn't mean to say that you should overindulge, because there are poisonous as well and damaging
yeah.
to your health. So yeah, dwell for that.
Yeah, and things like Coca-Cola, where children are drinking it by the bucket load, that's full of caffeine. These are psychoactive drugs,
Yeah,
and according to, my Google, it's telling me that, these psychoactive drugs causes lunacy, insanity,
yeah.
madness, so, but yet still it's okay to sell it. I just find it's very,
I
as you
work.
said,
I work with someone, and they was drinking about 10 plus coffees a day, and they tried to come off it, yeah, and literally they had the shakes, and it's not something that you can just stop like that. You have to kind of
no,
wean yourself off it, you know. And I've
yeah,
heard of people having to be, say, probably taking like decaf or something like that, slowly break it down to come off it. But as
yeah,
you say, it is an addictive drug, you know,
yeah.
as simple as it is. And also, it's got its benefit, but it has got its negative side to it as well.
Oh, definitely. Because I know from first time, because I used to drink a lot of coffee. I did, and it was and I didn't. When I used to get a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
You know, I hardly, and it was only because, like, our mayor,
Mhm.
Ken Darcy, with her medical, when I had a consultation with her, and she explained to me, like the relationship between the coffee and the headaches.
Mhm.
So like when I wasn't drinking coffee and then I've got this, headache, and then I'll have a cup of coffee and the headache would go away. So, so
Sure.
that is an addiction, and that's when I realized from her, information, that I realized that I was addicted to coffee. That was, a couple of years ago. So that's why, that's why it's so strong with me, because you think it's harmless. You're just having a hot drink,
Mhm.
but it's causing issues, It's also a blood thinner, isn't it? So
Yeah, they were saying like if you
it's a
got high blood
double.
pressure and that, really, right, it could be
Yeah,
dangerous, really, isn't it? Drinking
yeah,
coffee. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you know,
So
it's
it is a
so.
very dangerous drug.
Sorry.
Yeah. So really, it is a very dangerous drug. Caffeine, you know, nicotine and alcohol. They're very dangerous drugs, and
Yeah.
they're just there, out there,
Well, it is, because
promoted
if they
to
put
sell.
like a limit on how much is a safe limit to consume in a day, then anything that's got that kind of a regulation, well, they're aware that there's a danger there, isn't it? But there is
Well, this
still
is it.
profit that sells there, so it's left down to you. That we
Mm.
gave you the guidelines. If you want to breach that, it's down to you. But the advertisement and all this
Mm.
encouragement out there is not saying that, is it? Come and have a
No.
Starbucks. You know what I
Mm.
mean? They're not telling you to just have one cup a
Mm.
day.
Yeah, but I think
No.
it's more.
Come and get a triple shot. you know,
But I think with these, because I
a
just
triple.
know but this stuff like Starbucks and Costa Coffee and the other coffee things. Probably if you went back, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you weren't seeing,
They weren't there.
you weren't there.
They weren't there.
So it's kind of like
trend.
etc. And you can see how it's quite attractive and how you could begin to draw people in. So yeah, that's another thing that they are able to push with this in terms of just how they begin to drag people in and just inculcate people into this kind of culture as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
people think, don't go to the pub, try to avoid,
yeah,
drinking
yeah.
alcohol because it's not good for me. So let's go to the coffee shop
Yeah,
instead,
yeah, yeah.
And then all of these things are owned by the same government. All the revenue is going to the same place, so they've got a hold on, no, it's like pick your poison.
That's exactly what it is. Isn't it?
Not with Starbucks, 'cause they ain't paying no tax. But anyway, so
I'm sure Hackney Biksaa, may have wanted to say something. I thought I saw his hand up.
Ujai Sen? Biksaa?
Ujai.
Could you speak up a little bit? You're coming through a little bit low at the moment.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Ujai, everybody. I just want to acknowledge the ancestors and the divine world. And bless FM also for this platform and program. You mentioned, or you asked the question, who consumes the most coffee?
Yeah.
In the world. I was laughing because I happened to spend some time up in Scandinavia, and I remember reading at the time that they were the biggest consumers per head of coffee in the world, and it's kind of a cultural thing too. And this was maybe 25 years ago when I was out there living there. But you get to the office in the morning and everybody's drinking a really thick, strong, black cup of coffee, which is, the really strong version. And that was the first, and they must have probably had 10 or 12 in a day of those. So the espresso versions, which are really short and thick and strong, they were drinking big cups of those, and then 10 of them a day. And it's like you just end up doing it. And I remember coming back to the UK and thinking, well, you guys, we're amateurs over here with coffee. And then moving to France for a few years, they're professionals too. They really, they're I think the second highest consumers, just behind, the Scandinavian countries.
So you say,
and it's only
places like Sweden, those places, they consume a lot of coffee.
Yes, and they consume a little less alcohol, in a way, but the coffee is very high, and so I was just reflecting on that of how even when you might know that it has these harmful effects, there's something in you that just culturally just continues, or it's very difficult to come off that. So I remember coming back to the UK and having difficulty, reducing down what had sort of built up in coffee, and the same after coming back, from France. You kind of get caught up in the normal ways, as Yattepia was saying. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, well,
You me. Okay, Sam. Well, for your little input there, and we're going to be taking like a little commercial break, and then we're going to get back onto our main topic. So see you on the other side. Yeah, no. Hear me out. Hear me out. Look now, people. Hear me out. Oh God, yes. Who made the birds and the bees, sky and the sea? You and me will. Who made the moon and the stars, all creatures great and small? Jah who made them all. Till one take pride in destroying each other, living like savage every day. Ignorance in the spirit is holding us down, but what goes up, I know it must come down. Cause tribal war won't stop the problem. Hate and grudge can't stop the problem. Only love of God
make no operations affecting my people, leading them to evil. Hate and grudge, despise and dishonesty. Tell you that's not the way we wanna be. Wanna bring back the days when your love was down on earth. Wanna bring back those days when the heart of man was purged. What we need is love to guide us along the way. It don't matter what they say, I know tribal war can solve the problem. Only love of the heart can solve it. Tribal war won't stop the problem. Only love of the heart can solve it. Oh yeah. What we need is love to guide us along the way. Ooh, Lord, the heart of man could be like the grave. The mind of a man could be so corrupt. Your best friend, your worst enemy, and your enemy could be your best friend. But I say, tribal war won't stop the problem. Only love of the heart can solve it. Tribal war can stop the problem. Only love of the heart can solve it. Boy,
Are you speaking to me?
So the other side, this is the part of the show really where we're going to be going into our topic area, which tonight the topic is one of our 5 principles of spirituality, and our last show was on humility, and we have a guest in who was there last week who was sharing with you all. This week our topic is going to be honesty, and we're going to bring in our guests to Jason Biksaa.
Ujay. Yes, how you doing?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Yeah, just in case really people don't know who you are, just a light, overview of who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Biksaa Nessebik, and generational brother of Nessebik. So we're in the same group in London, the 4th generation. So I'm from the London Temple, and I'm now up helping to take care of the Coventry Temple up here in the Midlands.
Dawson, did you finish speaking then? Because your voice kind of...
Yes.
Okay, the door. Yeah, so say welcome to the show, and we're looking forward to your input. And we know we've got also our online guests. Yeah, we want to acknowledge you. If you want to kind of partake in the show and give your interjection, then we'll gladly like you to share with us on our topic matter tonight. Yeah.
Okay, tomorrow.
Ojahi Senti.
Hey.
Welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. Yeah. And you can probably share with us, give us your name later on if you want to share that with the listeners.
Okay, my name is Yattepia Tutsahwur. I am a graduate of the Birmingham School, which is now moved to the Coventry School, where I take care of this beautiful, wonderful temple here with the help of Biksaa and Nessebik. Yes, that's That's it really so far. Unless you get on the show.
Dua and welcome. Yeah, as I said, really,
Dua.
you know, please feel free to kind of if you got any questions or any things that you'd like to add on, yeah, we'll bring you in. So, as I said, Dua, tonight's show, then, as we say, we're going to be looking at honesty. This is a big one there, really, because when I look at our 77th commandment, you know, there's so many things in there dealing with, you know, honesty. Question is, what is honesty? And by definition, honesty is what we would say, a refusal to lie, to steal, to cheat, or deceive people in any way. Yeah, and so when we look at that, how many of us can actually look into ourselves and say we've been honest? We've been honest throughout our life, you know. And this honesty is about looking at self, because there's so many entrapment within society that just basically just taking on that garden path. So the question is, are you honest? Are you honest with yourself? And where and when did we learn to be dishonest? You know, it's this honesty. To be honest is about trying to be uprightfulness within yourself. It's about, you know, when you're an honest person, there's a sense of honorability, a sense of like that person has got a bit of integrity. So, you know, they're self-conscious and self-aware. You know, there's a sense of truthfulness. You know, that honesty displays a sense of trust. So we're going to be going and looking at the, you know, in being honest in different aspects of our impact on us in our lives, our daily jobs, work, just social life, relationships. You know, it's just so many aspects really like that this area covers. So, you know, when I was younger, my father used to say to me, you know, there's two things he didn't want into his household, was a liar and a thief. And, you know, when you're young, really, right, you think, why is he saying that? Because you didn't realize how important those two things are in terms of, you know, if as a parent, if you want to support your child, how could you trust someone, or how could you stand firm behind them if you can't trust them and validate what they're coming to you with? So it's in growing up, really, I get to understand the importance of what he was actually saying to me then, you know. And so we're going to start off, really, by reading from the initiatic tale. And it's going to be Master Naba, story from Master Naba from the initiatic tale. And we'll go through it that way. Yeah. Yattepia is going to be reading to you, yeah, so please listen keenly, and if, as I said, they want to interact, yeah, it's okay, go ahead.
Yep. Okay. Dwell. So this is page 43 from the Inashit Tales, can I say that, of Hejpatah, and the title of the chapter is The Pot That Can Die. Logic built on interest destroys spiritual honesty. A serious problem of people today is how easily they fall into traps, especially if the bait is based on an idea of gaining. It is sure that every individual that is conditioned by new society does not look at his or her actions with a critical eye, especially if the motive is he can profit from the situation. There is only one thing that can move us: logic. Even our most absurd decisions are motivated by logic. We do not need reality if reality does not conform to logic by which we are functioning. That is why we are making the human species the most destructive species on Earth. Our leaders of the revolutionary movements have, in a sort of proudness, announced to their people that anything imaginable by a human being can be achieved by the human. This has contributed to the social excitement behind ideas of a social movement that is capable of breaking the chains of the earthly and cosmic realities. One should not forget to mention that the zeal of the researchers who are preoccupied by nothing other than the dream to impress the world and to mark the history of humanity without limit. Perhaps we should start by talking about the virtual human living in a virtual reality, seeing the real reality as a monster that is always trying to devour him and bite him, if not to devour the world. The story I am going to tell you illustrates the conflicts or contradictions in which we are placed by logics that we accept simply because we think we can benefit from it. Two poor farmers from a tribe of the Mobar village in Biksaa in the northern Togo, West Africa, were discussing how easily every individual could be disposed of what they consider their wealth. It is simply a question of logic, says Kambining. One only needs to make someone believe that they have gained, and one only has to build a logic around that. His friend asked him to prove what he was saying. Do you see this small pot? He said, presenting a small pot of millet beer to his friend. This pot can only contain a quarter of what can fill the stomach of an adult. I will exchange 3 of these small pots for a big pot that your neighbour uses to cook their food for his whole family. His friend accepted the challenge without hesitation, thinking the neighbour was not as idiotic as his friend wanted him to believe. Kambing simply started by borrowing the big pot from the neighbour of his friend. When he got home, he hid the big pot and waited for a few hours, then went back to the friend of his neighbours, very excited, but with a very small pot that he preciously wrapped in a towel. Then he said very happily, "Hey, dear friend, you are one of the rare lucky people on this earth. Just when I borrowed your big pot, I did not know your pot was pregnant. It has just gave birth to a beautiful small pot. Oh, look at it. A beautiful pot. I think this small pot is yours. Take it." The news went round the village. "This man is crazy," people said every time they asked the owner of the big pot what he thinks of the situation. He always answered, "This man is crazy, I agree. Hey, look, I've just won a small pot. Hey, but look, I've just won a small pot." Weeks passed, and then Kambenge came back to the neighbour of his friend with another small pot. The owner of the big pot asked, hiding his malicious smile with the back of his hand, "Did my big pot give birth again?" "Oh yes, another beautiful small pot." Now the whole village agreed that Kambenge was crazy. Kambenge waited for a few more weeks and came back with a third small pot. Now the owner of the big pot simply showed him the place where he will, from now on, put the children of the big pot. Weeks passed, then months, without any news from Kambenge and the big pot. When people asked the owner of the big pot, he answered, laughing, "Maybe my big pot is pregnant again, or maybe it's giving birth." One day, the entire village was gathering under the baobab tree to talk about community news. They saw Kambenge coming and crying with hot tears. He came and fell to the feet of the owner of the big pot, crying. Then he announced that the big pot was dead. The public, who was already intrigued by the story of the big pot, looked at the man who did not accept the loss of his big pot. The man shouted loudly at Kambenge, "That's impossible. A pot cannot die. It's not an animal. I want my big pot back. I will call you to the judgment with the chief of the village." Kambenge was shaking his head, insisting and repeating with a soft voice, "Your pot is dead. It's dead. I saw it die." The chief of the village then announced there was nothing to judge. The man that accepts that a pot made of clay or iron can give birth like an animal should accept that it could die like an animal. This story reveals the reality of the lack of spiritual honesty that affects the human of today. Anything or any idea that is not true or false because we might gain or lose from it. We should understand that the logic built on our interest can only poison the idea that we want to preserve and the condition the world the condition the world to conflict that only spiritual honesty can solve.
So it's an interesting story, really, isn't it? Anyone online would want to kind of give their take of what they think of that? Because, you know, Biksaa. Was that son?
Yeah. It's a lovely story. And, you know, the idea that the person who lent the pot in the first place or had it borrowed from them bought the story that the pot was pregnant, you know, always makes me laugh initially, you know, and then you can see where it's going later on, and then he gets to complain about it when the pot's died, you know, and I, you know, it's clearly that a pot can't be pregnant or die in reality, but a reality's been formed, and where I think that the traditional elders and principles that they live by is shown when the verdict comes from the elder to say, well, if a pot can be pregnant, then it can die also. So no, you can't have it back. It's dead. You know, there's a logic being formed. Now live by it. You know, you've been dishonest in receiving the other smaller one, so now live by it.
Well, in the story there, for me, it was like there's three stages to that. There was like premeditated kind of dishonesty, deception that was going to take place there. You know, the two friends sitting there speaking, so that's where it all started, wasn't it? The dishonesty, yeah. And we can see like it was premeditated because he realized he had a kind friend. You know, they say when you're a good person, so to speak, yeah, your kindness could be taken for weakness. Because he didn't hesitate; he just lent him the pot. But at that stage, what overtook him was greed. Yeah, and it was through greed he got caught up in this dilemma here. And for me, like say, you know, judgment, that the honesty side of it now came at the end, where judgment was passed, where, as you said there, you know, if it wasn't through his greed, he wouldn't have accepted something that he knew that couldn't happen, that wasn't true. But because of his greed, he got caught up into that and went along with it. And it was his own greed that basically entrapped him and made him lost everything there. And for me, when I look in life, we can see oftentimes there's so many people out there just coming to you and with the same premeditated contempt of taking from you in a kind of a deceitful kind of a way. It's like an everyday thing, isn't it? You think of like how much people come to you, their intention, you don't know. It's like someone come to you, oh please, you know, can I lend me £100, I'll pay you back tomorrow. And all they want is to get that money in their hands. After that, their money's in their hand, you're at their mercy. And so what they're bringing out of you now, yeah, is something that you never planned for. You never catered for that, yeah? But now they're bringing out all these different kind of emotion and aggression from you, from your initially agreed, good deed. So I think when you really look at the story, most of us has fallen prey to that at some stage in our life where we've been tricked and duped. You know, so we look at that, we go out into society, you know, like your mechanics, places like that. You find out people are actually taking you for a ride, isn't it? They're offering you, like, I'll fix your car, but at what expense, at what cost, what are you going to have to pay, what honesty is there in it, you know?
But I also wonder whether, because I know you said that the two people kind of like made like, you know, trying to have it consorted between them, but in terms of between them one,
because it was a friend saying to his friend, I can take the pot off.
Yeah, but those two had the conversation, but then doesn't it also have something related to how they might see that person? Because it's almost like you wouldn't, they know that they might have seen something about that person, they thought he has a bit of dishonesty, or we can do that to that particular person. Because there are people that you look at and you think, or the people look at you and that's how people operate.
You're sizing them up.
So you look at that person, you think. So that was also the thing about the story. They looked at him and thought he would go act dishonesty, because, like you said, it's not logical that you give me a big pot and then you give me 3 smaller pots to tell that's been pregnant. That's not logical. So there must have been something they saw within this person that he would operate in that way.
Well, yeah. Because I mean, initially when he came to work the small pot, it was at that point he should have said, "Hold on, you're crazy," and stop it from then. Yeah, but as I said, this is where I said greed come into it, because now he's seen that, okay, this brother is a little bit off key, really, right? But I can get an extra pot out of this. So it was his greed. To me, that was like greed kind of kicked in there.
Yeah.
Con artists out there, this is what they're thriving on, isn't it? There's that kind of, they show you something and then you think, that I've been caught that way. And, so
can I just add then to what Yattepia just said, actually, because it does raise a point about the self-honesty bit. Because when we are deceiving ourselves, others around, the universe or whatever, it can see that. And, so that we're almost letting that in. And I remember a phrase that Nessebik said, that the traditions really use, which is, if you, the way that you do anything in life is the way that you do everything in life.
Yeah.
And there sort of went on to say that if you ignore reality in some aspects, you can ignore reality in many aspects, or of life. So as soon as you start becoming a little bit dishonest with some things, or not accepting reality for what it is, then it can start to be shared around in the rest of your life. And so it just says that they may not have gone to somebody who was or who does see reality as it is, and would just go, give me my pot back right from the start, rather than, oh, okay, thank you, I received the little baby pot. So it's a good point.
There's that saying, there's no free meal out there, really, isn't it?
No, and I was thinking about that because, again, whenever we look at these topics or discuss them, it's really about us looking at our lives and saying where in our lives are we gaining something, but we're not really being honest about what we're gaining and not having to work for. The other thing that we learn, or one of the teachings, is don't receive something or accept something that you haven't worked for.
Yeah.
Make sure that you haven't put your sweat into, because then almost like you're receiving something for free, or you're receiving something that you haven't actually worked for. And I was thinking about that in terms of many of the things that we might complain about these days, like Facebook, or even Skype or WhatsApp or what have you. We might complain that our data is being used, or we're they know everything about our lives and things like that. But we gladly benefit from what's been put in front of us for some time, which we haven't paid for, or worked for, or what have you. And we'll come up with many of the excuses or the reasons for it. Like, well, that's how it's done these days, that's the norm, or, we have to, what have you. But there's always the opposite side of that, where we will eventually have to pay somewhere along the lines for it.
That's
so
right.
It's just being honest about that too. Yeah.
But cleverly, though, if you look at those kind of setups there, really, you will see people think, okay, then I don't want to be on WhatsApp, I'll go on Facebook, and you see all these different sites popping up. And, as you said, what if they're not paying for it there and then, where does the payment coming from you? And it's about data collection, really, isn't it? And people kind of they buy into it, really thinking, oh, I'll go on Telegram or something, they're better there, and they believe, right, that their information and everything is safe. But it's the same set of people who realize that, you know, if I get them on my platform, I could be the one selling their data out there, really, right? And this is what they're doing, you know. And we're foolishly thinking that it's a safer setup, but it's not. It's the same control and divide, isn't it? Who's giving you anything for nothing nowadays? Going to be spending millions of pounds to set up something like that, yeah, and not be getting something back from it. Yeah. Anyway, Yattepia, sorry, have you like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much. Honesty comes with the concept of sacrifice. Only sacrifice something you are willing to lose. The two components of that story were both dishonest, and they could see the dishonesty in each of them.
Yeah.
One could see dishonesty in one with the pot, and the other one could see the dishonesty in the game he was playing. Mm-hmm. So they were both playing games with each other, because once they saw each other, they knew exactly what each of the other one was doing.
Yeah.
So their dishonesty was about not sacrificing their emotions and being honest with themselves. The dishonesty with the both of them. The first one, when he gave away his pot to someone to use,
yeah,
already knowing what that person was about. He wasn't a stranger. He was already somebody he knew. So at that particular point of the story, he probably thought, I might not get this back, but if I do, that's a good thing.
You think so?
Oh yeah, you don't give a stranger something. You don't give a stranger something that you need. If you're going to sacrifice, that's something that's important.
No, but it wasn't a stranger. It was his neighbor, I thought, wasn't it?
That's what I mean. He already knew his neighbor. He knew what his neighbor was about. He wasn't a stranger. So them two coming together already knew the dishonesty within each other.
The prayer.
So right from the beginning, they were playing a game, a dishonest game. And the one that gave his pot away should have understood that there was a price to pay. Because he knew, or he had an inkling that this person who has the dishonesty that I see within myself might not give me back my pot, and will probably try a way to keep it. And the one who had the pot did exactly that. He tried to keep it by giving him smaller pots instead, giving him the one that he should have given back in the first place. But the first one who gave the pot away was thinking, well, I'm benefiting from this, and eventually I'm going to want my pot back and still keep what he's given me. So they're playing a game of kind of like tic-tac-toe. See who can outdo the other. Now you're coming to tell me that my pot has died? Right, I'm going to get something more from you. If I can't get my pot back, I will get more. Again, the dishonesty is building up. They are in turmoil. Well, the one that gave the pot away is in turmoil because he lost his game. He lost his game of dishonesty when somebody overcame him and took something that he could not afford to lose. So when you are dishonest with yourself, it's about sacrificing your emotions and standing on principles to do what is right in all costs. Doesn't matter what the situation is, it might feel painful at the time to be honest, but in the long run, it's better to be honest than dishonest, because dishonesty will come back.
I totally agree with you, yeah, but it's always that, can we take the pain? That's what people oftentimes running from, really, isn't it?
That's the thing.
And even something simple like just telling, just giving bad news to someone.
Yeah.
You know, you think, oh, that person, they can't take it, so I'll give them half the truth. So because we're thinking we're trying to save them, but we're compromising the situation, yeah. But is that, like, if we're going to look at it hard and fast as a commandment, it's a lie, or being dishonest is a lie. Isn't it? A lie is a lie. Or should there be some compromise or to the truth?
I had a grandmother, great grandmother. Her name was Frances. And she wasn't liked because she was frank in her words. She didn't have many friends. But I came to understand that was her sacrifice. For her to stand on the principles rather than have partners in crime that would do nothing but degenerate her spirit. Your honesty comes with the goals that you have in your life. If you have no goals, you can be dishonest as you want to be. But if your goal is to elevate your spirit, honesty, as you said, is one of the pillars in Kemetic society, and it is something that must be honoured and be a conscious thought in your mind. Am I building or am I destroying? Am I elevating my spirit or am I degenerating? My actions, my words, my speech have an impact on those that I speak to. Even if you have bad news to give to somebody, it's better to deliver that news with honesty than to give them half and then they suffer later. You're only sacrificing by not giving them the full speech. You are not sacrificing your own emotions. As I said, honesty comes with sacrifice.
It does, definitely. Is it?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different take on it. I kind of hear your point on that, really, and I kind of agree that, to be honest, it does take a strong person, you do, to control your emotion, to just, as straight as it is, you just say it as it is, and oftentimes the truth hurts, but after a while you get used to it, so we're sometimes always trying to protect people by not being totally honest to them, and you think of it, even sometimes you got a young child, they come and ask you kind of a big question, I'm going to put it that way, and then if you were to tell them the truth for really what it is, then you think they're not ready to hear that, so you will kind of give them an answer that you think is suitable for them, but it's not the fullness of really what there is. So you can see how difficult really it is in our lives, really, right, to be hard and fast and say, I've been totally honest all my life. Because I said, when I was looking at the commandment there, there's so many there that actually covers that, So you can see how important it really is, honesty, and how difficult really it is to maintain that sense of honesty.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
And as you said, truth hurts. Dishonesty hurts the spirit. So which would you rather hurt, your emotions or your spirit, is the question.
Yeah, but because we're in this physical world, we're always thinking of protecting ourselves, and how many of us are actually looking at the spiritual side of ourselves? We don't, It's only when we come into a consciousness like environment, organization like the Earth Center, probably people start to kind of see more and look more at themselves. And this is going to bring us into, like, as initiates, really, we have certain qualities and certain things we're trying to. These 5 principles is there to help to enable us to get stronger. We're going to probably look into it a bit later on, as initiates, what that struggle is to maintain that sense of honesty within the environment that we're living in, being so corrupt. So
we are conditioned from the very early age to be dishonest. In education, it's dishonest. Our language is dishonest. The food that we eat is dishonest to our body. Every aspect of our life in modern society is about dishonesty. So it teaches us to be dishonest within ourselves. Don't face yourself. Don't face your fears. Distract them with something else. Don't be honest to yourself. If you're honest to yourself, you become a strong person. We don't want that. So yes, from a very young age, we are programmed with dishonesty. So we don't see beyond that. And all of our actions is about, don't give full truths. Be an individual. Be isolated. Keep secrets. It all ties into the culture that we're living in. The culture of dishonesty.
So the question that I want to pose then is, are we born honest or dishonest? Are we born dishonest or are we born honest? And where at what point at that stage do we start to become honest? So we're just taking it, just looking at it, because if we come into this world and we was born pure, what is it? What happens then to that stage why we become affected by? Yeah, could someone, Biksaa, you want to probably start this off?
I can do or Yattepia if you've got something.
Sin? Yeah.
No, go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a fascinating question, and what comes to mind there is, out of the mouths of babes, the truth comes, and when you're around young children, it's like, well, you can't speak about certain things because they're just gonna take them on board and share them sometimes, an opportunity,
with the right people.
or whatever. Yeah, and so it seems that children or babies when they come into the world, they do see things they see the reality, and they just accept that, and that's how they function. And I was wondering, when do we start? Because we've all got the ability to lie, deceive, steal, those sort of actions that. In the definition that said, refusal to do those things. When does that actually get activated, or, that aspect of us come into play, or, it's in us. And we know we actually know when we're doing that. So there's an inherent knowing of when something is a lie, or when we've taken something that really isn't ours, or we haven't worked for something, or when we're kind of deceiving, not telling the whole truth, or what have you. Mm-hmm. I was thinking that with children, we have the grandchildren here, and all of a sudden, from 1 week to the next, a lie comes in. Like, wow, where did that come from? You haven't done that before. You've just, fully spoken the truth, as you've experienced it. But, did you hit your brother? No. Really? We know you did. There's a mark on him, or his face, or his arm, or something like that. But no, I didn't do that.
Is that lie then because of his awareness of like what he did is wrong, so there's the consequence now that he doesn't want to face, so now he realized really right that if he denies it he might get away with it. So where does that first initial consciousness of protection, because you're protecting yourself now really, isn't it, while you're telling a lie, isn't it? Where did they inherit that awareness from, to start to lie?
And then you follow up with the question, right? Well, where did that come from? Why did you say that? And there's a long silence, trying to figure out how do I get around this now? Because I know, because they know it's, and we know it's when we say a lie that it's not true. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to, because there's some form of negative. They're trying to gain something. But they're prepared to sacrifice the truth, or to lie in order to gain that. But now they're caught. Now that the problem is, now there's the problem, and that's where we need to really catch it early and get that. Look, it's better to tell. It's better to be truthful, to be honest. To share that, and start from that principle. And then before later on, finding out certain things that you say and don't say at certain times or what have you. But there's obviously something to gain by lying. And they do it unconsciously at first, I think. They do it consciously, but it is actually for them to gain something.
Yeah.
I say they, children, which we all were once,
Yeah.
you know, and we may even act like that as we're adults. That's why it's important to really think about what we're saying, and to you know, and to really be really conscious about what we're expressing, and really conscious about our actions, you know, and because it's our history that we're writing, you know. So.
Anything else to say?
Well, yeah, I suppose just the a bit like you were saying, the protection, you know, because I listened to something to gain, but it was also, I'm wondering, as a children, is there something they're trying to protect as well in terms of, yes, you want to get into trouble, but that kind of, because we all have that, because that's part of the reason why we lie, isn't it? To protect ourselves, isn't it? We want to protect ourselves from whatever consequences that is to come. So that is also something to, as a child, you know, whatever they've done, yes, they might have done something to gain, but also they're trying to protect themselves from, like, they know maybe they shouldn't have done that, or there's something that maybe they've done it consciously or unconsciously, but to say that lie, it protects you from the potential consequences that it may go through in their head.
Punishment or whatever it might be.
Whatever punishment or whatever they might perceive that's going to come to them. So that's something else as well. Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to put this question at it then. So do you think really, right, the way of parenting style, like in terms of, you know, we see where a child probably might be beaten, going on, you know, getting physical pain or something like that, where they know that's coming, so automatically that puts up their defense that I don't want to tell the truth. Whereas, you know, say they stole something from a shop, for example, and their parents found out. Now, there's many different ways probably some parents will deal with that incident, and you know, some will beat that child to death. You know, you can take that child, you know, sit down and talk to the child, you know, say, no, this is wrong, you don't do that, this is stealing, explain it. But I think there's an element really why I think some children probably will lie, is because if they're going to go into an environment where they tell the truth and there's that fear of, you know, punishment, that they don't want, we are going to lie. Whereas probably if that child was to be sat down, spoken to, you know, and you know, they pointed out that what they're doing is wrong, it might give them that, you know, okay, I did something wrong, but I'll own up to it because we can talk about it. You know, it's rather than the capital, you can still come to letting that child understand that what they did was wrong without having to beat them. So that would probably, you know, make them kind of acknowledge, well, it's okay to be honest, because then I could learn something from owning up to what I did wrong, as opposed to shutting down and you never go forward from that, you know. So I do believe really, right, that parenting style really, right, could probably play a big difference really in how forthcoming children will be in volunteering information to them, you know. Yattepia, as a mother, how did you think that? Do you think that, how does that sit with you? What I've just said there.
Parenting style does have a lot to do with the behaviour of a child. Sometimes children will lie because they are spoilt, and they want to be in the good books to receive something. Sometimes children will lie out of fear. Sometimes children will lie out of jealousy or wanting attention.
Yeah.
There's many different reasons why a child would lie, but the question doesn't lie with the child, it lies with the parenting. Why does a child assume that they can lie? What is it they've been exposed to make them believe that it is all right to lie?
Yeah.
What foundations have been put in place so that they can understand right from the beginning that lying is not the way to go? It's down to the parenting. It's down to their environment. It's down to what they're exposed to. They might have brilliant parenting, but I mean, as the way of talking to a child, never been, you know, physically disciplined, but yet that child could sit in front of a TV and be exposed to lies on a TV screen in a children's show. There are many different ways their child could be exposed to that. It's not just fear, it could be a number of things. It's about the conditioning, it's about their exposure, their environment, their education, their peers, their friends. There's a lot of things that come into play where a child lies. We're all born with the capability to lie and not to lie. It depends which one we're feeding, which one we think we will gain the most from. And again, what our goals are. But for a child, they don't have any goals. They have short-term ones, like if I lie, I could do this and I could get away with that. But again, it's many things that will feed into a child to let the child believe that it is okay to lie.
So do you believe? I mean, the bit that I agree with, like the social media and all that kind of. Would you say then that they have more influence and things over your child than you have?
Oh,
Because
definitely.
Because you're saying, where did they get that from? You didn't instill that in them, but yet they know these things. So where is it coming from?
And there's another thing is that a parent can subconsciously install it in them as well, based on their exposure. They might want one thing for the child, but the behavior is something else which contradicts a child's thought patterns. So there are many things, many things. But social media, TVs do not help. Because you could be the best parent in the world and leave your child an hour a day on the screen or an hour in the weekends, and the child will still be exposed to something that you might not necessarily want your child to know about. Or understand that child is not strong enough to be able to understand the concepts of what they've been exposed to.
Anything else on children? So what's the best way to go about trying to get our children to be more forthcoming and be more honest and open to us? You got any suggestion that you could offer out there? Because I mean, I know when I was growing up, if I knew I was going to get beaten, I probably would tell a lie. I'm telling you the truth here now. You know what I mean? Because when you look at some people who were beaten, you don't really want to get no beating. Because they might not be using the belt. So we can see, it's like we can see how some people, how they've been dealt with as children. That the fear, of if they did something wrong, they don't want it to get back home. So they will just do anything, say anything really, just to cover their tracks. So we're looking at, if we weren't born with this honesty within us, and we can see, then it's like a learned behavior from our environment, from our community, peer groups, and all these different aspects of our living. Then we can see that these influences, we grow up with them. And then we're in a society or in a system basically then that says that, okay, we want you to be honest. But it's like the lawmakers are the lawbreakers. And so for you to survive in it, if you're totally honest, how do you survive in a system that is there, that, just to fill in a form and access something that you need, you have to be kind of, what's that word I'm looking for? Kind of compromising with the truth, kind of,
Economic with the
economic, that's the word, yeah. So, as initiates, we're coming to initiation, and we realize that's a virtue that we should try to develop. How, as initiates, then, do we fit into a society that's basically that you have to lie, cheat, steal to get the things that you need? Because that's what's been imposed on the people, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Go on, sir.
I was going to say, we are taught in initiation that we must understand ourselves, understand our emotions, contain our emotions. For those who are not in initiation, you will find that lies or lying is tied to emotions. Now, if you do not have your emotions in check, if you do not understand what an emotional state is, an emotional state is not necessarily somebody who's overly happy or somebody who's overly angry. An emotional state could be somebody who's very quiet, but inside is boiling up. Now, If your emotions are tied, if your lying is tied to your emotions, you will be somebody who will constantly lie if your emotions not in check. For children, it's about helping them to understand themselves better and understanding their emotions in order to understand what lying is about. For those who are not in this initiation, it's the same concept. Understand yourself, understand why you have emotional reactions to things, understand what triggers you, what attachments you have to those emotions, to things, to people, to circumstances, and tap into those emotions and understand why you lie, what is behind the lying. It's people will there's people that will lie so much that it's a part of them. They don't see the impact that it has on others because it's all about self.
Yeah.
It's about protecting yourself, as you say. It's about individualism.
Mm-hmm.
It's about dealing with my own issues on my own and not telling anybody about it. It's about trying to strive on your own without the help of others, and therefore if I'm in problems I must cover it up. I must be dishonest to everybody out there, and then I must be dishonest to myself because I can't face it. And then you have a lot of problems mentally because a lot of people have difficulty in thinking their ways out of situation because we are taught what to think but not taught how to think. So if you're taught to always be dishonest with everything you do, you're going to be dishonest with yourself. And in not facing up to yourself, your thinking will be going round in circles all the time, till you find yourself in either anxiety or depression or some sort of issue that you then get medicated for by the very same people who educated you in the first place to be dishonest. Mm-hmm. It's a vicious cycle that we're living in, and until you understand or address your issues of attachment and emotions, you will be stuck in a very hard place.
Yeah, I think in terms of the question you posed, it's challenging. I know for myself, you realise that a lot of things you're exposed. I suppose when you come into initiation, you realise you're exposed to. You get a deeper understanding of what you're exposed to. So in terms of lying, you realise that is how much that is a part of you as well. In terms of like just on your, sometimes so I'll give you an example for myself. There are times that I've been in work and I've said something to somebody, just not knowing, not even it, and I've just said it. I've not even thought about it, and I've just as part of being initiation, reflecting on why I've actually said that to that particular person, because it was a lie, but I didn't really need to lie to that person, but it just came out my mouth without me thinking. But I think it's more about actually part of it is kind of like, as we said a moment ago, it's protection, but it's more about the kind of protection you have for yourself in terms of the barriers you're trying to put up, in terms of trying to make sure that sometimes you don't necessarily want to engage with that person, or that you don't feel that you want to engage. So being able to tell the lie takes that situation away, and then you can go about your business. But realistically, is it better to actually engage in that conversation and not lie? Do you know what I mean? Because like we said earlier, what is it doing to yourself? Because these things just, and I was thinking about it when I did it, and I reflected and I thought, how many times did I really need to do that? And then thinking about, well, how many times have I done that, kind of not even consciously realising I've done it? Do you know what I mean? Before coming into initiation, because I know like we said, there's a commandment there that says thou shalt not lie. So when you go back and reflect and you think, but I've just told a lie, but I don't really need to, but it's almost habitual as part of my way of being.
Yeah, but I think that's where society really, right, as kind of we know, right, that we can't be straight honest with them, and so it just becomes like just an everyday thing, really. Like
it is an everyday,
but it's an unconscious.
Yeah, it's an unconscious, because it's
something embedded in you, then in your consciousness.
It's embedded because it's like, because we're in a society that there are lots of times there are not consequences for your lie in lots of ways. Obviously, there are consequences for your lie, but there's nobody there's nobody pulling you up for some of the things you say. If you say a lie to somebody, no one's necessarily pulling you up for and say, hold on a minute, you know, X, Y, and Z, and giving you that. But when you come into initiation, you know there is.
Yeah,
you know there is. So I suppose it's more about kind of you recognise, as an individual, recognising that what, you know, like you said, society, but it's also, obviously, we're part of society. So it's kind of thinking about, you know, recognising that what is being forced into you and trying to kind of understand that and kind of, you know, go in a different path or trying to operate in a different way. So
yeah, because I mean, you know, within myself, really, I know that to survive within the society now, as I say, unconsciously, you know, there's a question to be answered. You know, you're thinking, well, I want to get A, so I need to put down this. And you're going to do that because you want to get that. And that's how society is set up. And it's like you're forced to do these things. And if you're not conscious and strong within yourself to say, well, you know something? I'll give you an example. Years ago, I had a disability. I've still got disability, right? And I was given like a blue badge. That allows you to park up like in certain convenient space as a disabled person. Every 3 years you have to go for an assessment. So I went for this assessment there. I was asked a question, can you walk 50 yards unaided? I said, yeah. You know, with a struggle I could have walked there because I was quite bad at the time. That because I said yes to that question there, that badge was taken away from me. Yeah. Even though my doctor has written a letter and everything else saying he needs it and there on, yeah. So like the only way I could have got that was to lie to them. And that was just something that my doctor and certain people around saw that I, you know, would enable me, as you know. And so this is what people are going through in society to access certain needs that they have. Yeah, you're pushed in that direction there. And when you are trying to be honest, you know, you find that you're paying dearly, really, right, for your honesty. So sometimes then you're left to think, well, what do I do then? And this is where initiation kind of becomes very challenging.
It's meant to be. It is meant to be challenging.
Yeah,
it's meant to be challenging. So.
Yeah, but when society there, then yeah. So, Biksaa, I don't know if you want to add on to that because I'm sure there's plenty more. Which I said.
Yeah, there is plenty, and it's been said already. We have to sacrifice something in order to be honest. But when we are honest, we sleep better at night. Whether it's that situation, you know, with the person that Yattepia was talking to, and you know, being honest and confronting the self first, and then the situation. But you know, after we are honest with ourselves and we do the right thing, more often than not, things are going to be less complicated in our lives. And you know, that's at the level of our lives that we're talking about a path here, a sort of way of life that also takes into account not only how we live our lives, you know, whilst we're living, but also taking care of the non-material part of ourselves, the spirit, you know, that which carries on after the body remains in this dimension, in this you know, time and space. And so, you know, it begs the question on you know, what actions are honest, what actions are honourable, what actions are upright or virtuous, you know. And as you started at the beginning, which is the God's, the divine code of human behaviour that's Nebnaba has brought back, that's been kind of taken away from humanity for some time, or hasn't been put in the forefront for us to understand how they, you know, they saw our corruptions, and they saw, because they were the ones that created us with all the magnificent things that we have, a brain, a heart, you know, many ways of functioning, thought, the ability to plan, the ability to, you know, to do many different things, and so they did, but they also saw that we had the ability to lie. We have the ability to cheat. We have within us those things to steal. But as soon as those things happen, we cause conflicts in our lives, conflicts and complications with ourselves and with others. And so they gave us those guidelines. And as you said earlier, Nehib, so you said when I can't remember whether it was the government gave the guidelines. You gave it in another context, where you said we give you the guidelines and it's down to you to use them, or to follow them. And I was thinking about that with the divine code. When you first get exposed to that, or get access to it again, and you look down them, thou shalt not be impatient, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not cheat, thou shalt not be impure. It's like, these are all very good, things to do. They're not going to be easy, because we've probably learned not to have those boundaries put into place around us in order for our lives to run. But once they're there, that's the thing. It's about being self-honest, because many other people, or it was said earlier on, someone's not necessarily going to pick you up for lying, or being, deceiving, or
No, they're not.
Being impatient. Someone's not necessarily going to pick you up on that in this society. But so you've got to do that yourself again. And it's a bit like trying to come off coffee that we started with. Mm-hmm. There's going to be so many encouragements for that. Adverts, nice coffee shops, the meeting places now happening in coffee shops, meeting friends there instead of the pub, or whatever, or whatever. There's going to be so many different. We have access. We just open the cupboard door now in our kitchen, and there's coffee there. We don't have to go and get the beans, grind them, let them dry out, only have them for certain parts of the year, those sorts of things. We have it really readily available for us. It's comfortable. And so we're the ones that we have to put those boundaries back into our lives in order to get balance and make sure that we're not, degenerating or, hurting ourselves. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, that makes us look into societal kind of dishonesty, really. I mean, that's what's playing us now, isn't it? Where, you're talking about preserving yourself, or people trying to preserve themselves. We see, like within the society, we pretend sometimes that we care. Now, Yattepia, who came up with a good point the other day, which is quite true, because if you really look at our so-called busy lifestyle, do we really have time for each other? And this is like a everyday kind of happening, really, out there, isn't it?
Okay, so what we're referring to, so it's something that it was an issue actually. We were in class actually, and we were talking about which we maybe come back to in a moment, like dishonest and honest questions, and she was just recalling during the week that she had just said good morning to people, how you doing, etc. And said it to 2 or 3 people, and then one person kind of stopped her to say, well, yeah, I'm not doing too well actually, and started to explain to her how things are going. And she was like taken aback by that, and we were just reflecting on that in class and just thinking, well, how many times do we say that during the day? It's like, how you doing, how things going, etc., etc. And do we actually really mean those questions? Yeah. Are we really interested in how that person's going, or how things are going for that person, or is it just a colloquialism that we just say during the day, just to say how you doing? But it's just part of the culture that we just say how you doing, and we're out going about our business. We're not actually really concerned about how people are doing. And I think it was one of the, when we were talking about this actually, I think it was one of the contrasts which I'm sure Biksaa and Yattepia might be able to explain in terms of how it functions in the culture, because it's very,
Yeah,
it's
we'll
very
get onto that bit later. But
yeah,
this European side of it is
Yeah.
very. It's all.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit more.
Yeah. So that's it really. So it's kind of more so just thinking about us as individuals, kind of when we're going about our daily lives, and how many times are we kind of just asking dishonest questions, or questions that are not really. The question we're asking is not really our intention. That we're asking a question, but our intention behind it is not really that honest or that genuine, in terms of we don't want to know how people are really, or we're not interested in how we, but it just suits us to sort
It's
of
just
say
it's just a face that
Yeah.
people are putting on, as you can say they care, but
Yeah.
deep down inside, probably they might do in some aspect, right? But because time, we're in a society that time we seem to be always constantly rushing for time to do this, to do that, and we never really have time really to have a proper conversation amongst each other, isn't it? Unless your train is late or something like that.
Yeah, and I suppose it just again, I suppose how this society functions is like, well, in different communities maybe they do, but we don't really necessarily. It's even the people at work. When we really think about it, we don't really. Sometimes we don't really know these people at work. We work with people, but we don't necessarily know them.
Yeah.
So we might just say how things are going. But we don't actually know
Don't
them.
really mean it,
We don't really
yeah.
mean it, and we don't really
Yeah.
want to kind of engage with, 'cause like you say, we don't necessarily have the time, but we don't really know that person. We've never really got to know that person, so that conversation or that is not really what we're looking to have. So if they stop us and say, actually, this is what's happening for us, what would we do?
Yeah,
what would
did you see that one coming?
yeah, what would you do that? How would you react to that? You know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah.
like it's not something we're expecting. We're not expecting a response from that question. We're not expecting a response. We've asked the question, but we're not respecting a response. We're just expecting, yeah, I'm okay, and then that suffices us, because then we can go about whatever we want to do on that particular moment or whatever that time and space we're in. We can go about our business. So that's what we're expecting. I'm okay, or things are okay. I'm not too bad. However you want to say it. We're not expecting someone to say, actually,
Yeah.
this is what's happening for me. Can you listen to what I've got to say?
So I got time for that. I'm in a rush. I've got to catch my train or something
exactly,
like that, isn't
exactly,
it?
yeah.
So is that a part of society as well, though? The fact that they've got us attached this clock, this of time. We've got to be here by this certain time, so we don't really have time for self. You think that's got something to do with it?
Yeah, we are run by the clock, aren't we? We are run, especially if you're employed, etc. We are run by the clock. So yeah, that's that kind of someone's taking 5 minutes out of our day to say how we're doing. We're already thinking, actually, I need to be here, or I need to be doing this, or I need to, lots of us are thinking that, So when someone's talking to us, we're already thinking, yeah, you're standing in front of me talking to me, but actually I've got to be here, or I've got to be, you taking that 5 minutes out of my day means I can't do this, or I'll miss out a train or whatever. So yeah, I think that is part of it. We don't really, the society doesn't allow us to have that, because how it's structured us in lots of ways. If we're working or whatever we're doing, it's putting a limit on what we can do time wise for people, individuals.
So that if you want to find out who really does care about you or for you, the next time they ask you how are you, just say, well, you could see how genuine or disingenuine people really are. And this is an everyday occurrence, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's every day. Yeah,
Every day, yeah.
I'm sure I've said it today. Not unconsciously.
Yeah.
I would have said it
How
today.
you?
How
Okay.
you doing? Everything's all right. I'm sure I've said it.
Yeah.
So.
And Biksaa, yeah. I mean, what's the opposite to that now, from the traditional aspect?
Well, I was just reflecting on the dishonest question, or the question where you're asking something that you don't really necessarily you've already got something in mind. And I was going to apply that even to this topic. When someone might ask, well, how can we be honest when everyone is dishonest around us?
Yeah.
And if you look at the politicians, it's very difficult to see, even when our Prime Minister is caught lying, early on in his career, on the front page of the Telegraph at the age of 21, before, early on in his career, and then, Boris Johnson or whatever, and then later on, gets caught a number of times and whatever. How can we be honest when all of that is, we're being taught to be dishonest and what have you. That's not really a question that you can answer, because if you answer it, it's already loaded in a way with whatever you come back with. There's going to be yes, but what about them? What about if we're being taught on our TV screens, the cartoon character that lies and cheats and is the hero? How there's going to be a yes but at the end of it, because it's already there's already an attachment to something. So if you try even then to say, well, it's about your own honesty, it's not about what's going on outside of you, and all of those things. There's a reality that actually you're the one that's responsible for your own destiny, not what's going on outside of you. You've got to learn how to really initiate it, to take control back of you, or to make sure that you're stepping correctly. Because there's
so
that will be seen, not only by those around you that you can see, but it will be seen by those around you that you cannot see, and that are recording that, so that when we transition, etc., the whole notion of the judgment scene that, we have, where everything's recorded. And so take responsibility, learn how to do that, and that would be the honest question, really, how can we do it? But to be really unattached to what the answer that comes back to you, so that you're really there to learn. Is there a way? And I think in our society we get detached from the reality quite early on, and it's accepted. So when we said, anything you do, it's like anything you do, or if you detach from reality in some things, if you ignore reality in some things, then you can ignore it in many things in your life and about yourself, and that, about the world. And I think in cultures that are close to nature, like pagan cultures that live close to the land, or indigenous cultures that live close to the land, they're taught not to see things with emotions, not to see the TV screen version of it, but you're really close to nature. So you see the one animal killing another, and like one of my friends, he lives in the countryside now, and he said his daughter, who is his wife's second daughter, the first daughter grew up very closeted, very in a town, not close to nature at all, and so she's horrified whenever she sees animals being killed, or anything being hurt or whatever. It's like it disgusts her. But the baby daughter now, who's grown up with the cat that brings a mouse in, plays with it and then kills it.
Yeah, they do that all the time, don't they?
but many times in the space of a month. And the daughter's just, well, that's how nature works. So there's much more of an honesty about how nature works and how reality works. The good things that grow and the other things that destroy in order to keep growing, and so I think they are much closer to reality, in which case the questions will be more honest. How does reality really work so that I can function within it? How does nature work so I can function within it?
But if the society that you're living in is not working with nature and they're going against it, This makes it even more difficult, though, isn't it? Because that's a problem that we have. Things that's been imposed on us that defies the laws of nature, and we're going along with it, you know. And, you know, we can see the dishonesty in it because we're seeing the impact that it has on us, you know, our GMO food and all these different things that they're imposing on us. And people are just accepting it and going along with it, you know. And they know it's doing us harm, but for money, profits, everything like that, they still impose it on us. You know, and there's a dishonesty there, really, because, you know, just like the COVID vaccine there, they knew that it was killing people, yet they were informing people that, you know, take it, you know, this is going to protect. And there was a lot of dishonesty there, misinformation, really, right? And we're looking at, you know, how can someone then make an informed decision if it's lies that he's been barraged with? You know, and that's the system, that's the society that's actually we're serving. So, you know, we're in an establishment like the Earth Center where enables us to kind of at least to get some kind of consciousness and awareness of ourselves, where we can see it for what it really is. Again, how honest can we be to go out there and express that to them? You know, like to your employer, you know, they say like, you're robbing me, you know, you should be paying me a better wage, or just if you were to be honest out there, really, right, you get the sack. I worked for an employer one day, and I told him straight, if you do me something, I'm going to do you something back. And he, you know, almost lost my job for that because he wanted to know what I'd do to him. But the point is, I'm just saying to him, you know, you think that you have power over me, you think that you've got all the power to do what you want. But what happens when somebody actually push back and stand up for themselves as a human being? You know, they didn't want to hear that. And so this is where the power, the manipulation, so we're forced to lie and pretend, yeah, that we're happy and we're not. So how many times we're being dishonest to ourselves? We don't like certain situations, certain conditions, but we go along with it to what? To get along, you know? And it hurts, you know, because you're doing that to yourself. Yeah, no one else, but to yourself, you know? So, yeah. Yeah.
I think there's one.
I mean,
one-
just, I did ask the question, Biksaa, about the balance to the Yattepia, who westernized version of, you know, when asked the question, how high you, as opposed to traditionally, what kind of answer you would get back there, and how probably genuine or disingenuine people are. The fact that you've been to Merita and you know, you got a little bit of experience there. Could you share with us of your experience of that and how people would greet each other?
I mean, the greetings that I've experienced, they're much more. I mean, I almost akin it to if we're in a city, we virtually walk past each other, other human beings, without acknowledging them. It's like the norm. Go to the countryside, and you walk past somebody, you're going to get acknowledged, and possibly even people are going to stop and say hello and what have you. And it's a bit like that. We'll do it here as a thing that we have to do. I think I said previously, when
Sorry, losing your voice, Biksaa. I'm going to speak up a little bit.
when we go on pilgrimage and, you know, and stay in the healing village, you know, the first thing everybody does is go and say hello to each other. There might be 50 people there, there might be 40, there might be 20. But that's the first thing we do. You get up in the morning and you go and acknowledge everybody. You know, and you know, you're not just saying you're saying it to see if there are, you know, things that are said and the things that are unsaid. Is everybody okay? But there's a time that's taken over it, and when you hear in the traditional language people greeting each other, it goes on for it's not just how are you, good, how are you, good, how are you, how's your family, how's your sleep, how's your work, and it's there's maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 things that will be said at least, and then it will be returned. So it's taken a lot more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even if the response is, yeah, I'm good, well, thank you, yes, thank you, yes, oh, thank you, yes, to each one of those, there's a respect, there's an acknowledgement, there's many things that are going on that are not said, that are part of it.
So you say that you found that people were more genuine in terms of when they asked that question, that there was a sense of concern about, the question that they posed to them?
Yeah, so even if it's part of the culture to ask all of those different questions, and in between each, question, there's a yes, there's an acknowledgement, there's a yes, oh, thank you, there's a, in between. But how's your, how are you? I'm good, thank you. How's your wife? Oh, it's good, thank you. How's your health? Yes, good, thank you. So there's that going on. It's a cultural thing, but as I say, there's many things that are taken with that in the non-said sense. It's acknowledgement, it's appreciation, it's there's a level of caring. There's a level of respect that's given. Even to the point where children will, and this is the thing too, children will learn early on that whenever there is an elder, they will go and acknowledge the elder, and it's almost like they're asking for the blessing by saying hello to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as soon as you get that into a culture, and that's the opposite from Disney, where the children are the heroes and the adults are the stupid ones that can't, do anything or whatever. The children have to be the ones that take control, or, go and save the world, or what have you. It's the absolute opposite. Here, the elder ones are the ones that see further. They're the ones that have potential knowledge. They're the ones that are respected. They're the ones that are, so there's an acknowledgement of that from an early age. And that then allows the younger ones, of which we in humanity are younger compared to the spirits in the non-material, that stay here, that are here before we arrive and are here after we leave. The spirits of the rivers, the spirits of the mountains, the spirits of the forest, etc. So there's a sort of great respect for those more powerful aspects of nature, more enduring aspects of nature that we come and go. And so we sort of bow down to them. We look to be in their care, like the children in the villages are in the care of those that are older than them. And they're learning how to rise up, to take care of others,
Mm-hmm.
to be responsible.
Yeah, do have that, Sam. Yattepia, have you got anything to add on to that?
I'm just listening to you guys. I mean, was there a question?
Yeah, well, it was more or less like we're noticing really just the way that when we in the Western world, when we greet each other, there's a sense of disingenuity about it. Could be just due to our lifestyle. We're always on the go, but it was observed really right that traditionally they seem to have more time and there's more genuine kind of concern about, when they say, how are you? There's a genuine feeling of concern to say, well, how are you?
Yeah.
You know, and I know you've been on both sides, so if there's any comment you'd like to make there on.
Yeah, there is a huge difference in mindset between the modern society and the society of traditional indigenous people. As you're speaking about with the greetings, with over here in the modern society, we have this concept of individualism, where we can do it on our own. We have the nuclear family, 2 parents, a child, cat and a dog maybe. Whereas and this leads us to not taking care of others as much, not looking out for the other human being in our neighborhood. A lot of us don't even know who our neighbors are, never mind talk to them.
True.
We don't have the concept of, if I fail, we all fail. It's not like that at all. If I fail by myself. I could be a rich man living in a mansion and know that I have family members living on the street. It doesn't bother me because it's about me. Whereas in the traditional indigenous cultures, it's the flip side. They have a mindset of collectivism, where there's no such thing as me, it's we, because each person walks with the non-material, so they don't count themselves as alone or an individual. There's no I, it's we.
It's we or us, yeah.
Yeah, so even the mindset is inclusive of everybody. When they see people, you don't know who you're greeting, you don't know who they walk with. They could be family and don't know, so they treat you as we, as part of us. So there is a concern for people that they don't know because they don't know who they are or where they've come from. So let's treat them as I would treat my own family, because that person is not a person, an individual. That person is still a we. It belongs to us, a part of humanity. There's no separation, there's no division, unlike in the modern societies. There's division on every level. Even the divisions have been divided. But in traditional indigenous cultures, you will find that they don't live in separate houses. They live in compounds. They live in villages where everybody knows each other. People work together. They all contribute to everybody's life. So just the mindset alone, there's no understanding of singularity. There's no barrier between people. We are all family. And when you go back home to Merita, it's like, welcome home, you've come back home. It's not like you're a visitor. They will watch to see, have you come back as a family or as a stranger? And they will guide you, and not in words but in actions. They will watch, and then they will adjust themselves in order to benefit you. There is a saying that they have, suru, patience and tolerance. So you'll see them walking past, and they'll have the Westerners doing their things, and they'll say suru, suru. But they're not saying patience and tolerance with the visitors, they're saying patience and tolerance with themselves. In all visitors.
We've got put up with them.
Yeah, so even that alone, they are still thinking of the others, because they want them included into their family, their community, their society. Yeah. So there is a completely different mindset, and children grow up with that. They are taught from a very young age that if you're a male, you have roles. If you're a female, you have roles. Your elders are very important. The children grow up with the grandparents, where the parents go out to work. The elders are the people of the village, the wise people of the village, who are consulted on things that matter. There are, there's a hierarchy in place. There's stability. There's the family functions so much differently to how the family in the West functions. So there is unity, and there's a cohesiveness and a tightness that's there, that binds people together, and educates them to be more concerned about others as well as themselves. Whereas in the West, we are conditioned to be concerned with self. and no one else. So the mindsets are completely different. So greeting, we'll gladly walk past hundreds of people in the street and never look up to see who they are.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen in indigenous traditional cultures, because that's not in their programming or their build or their makeup.
Yeah, go on for that. Yeah. We're going to be coming to the end of the program shortly. Do you want to say anything on?
No, I mean, well, yeah, I suppose a bit like we were saying with the previous one, previous show we do around humility. I think this is a really it's a really big topic, and we've only kind of almost scratched the surface of it, and it's kind of like almost there's probably another show in that really that we could do in terms of this topic. It's a really big topic, and I think the same as when we were speaking about humility. You kind of realise why we've been given these principles, why we've been given these tools to actually develop our spirituality, because they are so fundamental to being able to function in that spiritual space. So
we're in this corrupt society, because it is, our next topic is going to be, was it strength of character?
Yeah, I think it's strength of character.
And that's going to be, well, this is where we need those qualities there, because we've got to understand that the system is set up really right. It's designed for our demise, and as they, as initiation, they say corruption goes downhill, and we see that we have this concept jizzer and bent, and so it's so really difficult really right for us as initiates or someone who's trying to do good to stay pure, because there's just so much entrapment out there really right that this is why we have to go through so many reincarnations to come back, because the journey is not easy, but the good thing is that we have at least a direction. And when we was looking back at children, we see that the quote that Biksaa quoted from Master Naba, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. If from a child you've been taught to be able to look at life in a certain way, this is going to be your pattern that you're going to demonstrate or project in life. And so it's important really, like even the initiation program, where it starts from a young age in Merita, so the children really they get and have a sense of who they are and what society is going to throw at them. So we're not perfect and we are going to make mistakes, so it's not to say that they're better than us, but at least you've got a direction, whereas most of us here don't even know who we are, and sadly we're just like lost sheep going around and round in a circle. And so we're gonna I'll tell you what, we'll Biksaa, have you got any closing speeches or any, something you want to say first?
I'll keep it very short. And it's another...
Sorry, you could speak up a bit, Sen. We could just...
Sorry. I'll keep it very short, and...
Please do, yeah.
It's another saying that really struck me from Nebnabala Nessebik that we receive in the teachings, which is, if the truth... If the truth hurts, it's because you're lying.
So to repeat that one again, Sen, because there was a little kind of
If the truth hurts,
yeah,
it's because you're lying.
Okay.
So that's worth thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Meditating upon.
If the truth hurts, it's because you're lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave things with that.
That's a serious one, because I can think of how many people say things to really right, they get quite upset about it. So that's quite a deep statement there, really, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is, but it's very much about self-honesty.
Yeah.
and seeing reality for what it is, rather than what you wanted to be, and not being happy about what it is, and trying to change it into how you would like it to be, but it's not reality then. So. Thanks for inviting me on the show again. Thanks for inviting me on the show again. Too.
Oh no, it's a pleasure, really. We needed to, with this different thought process, really. Like we say, it's a diverse world, and it's good to look at things from as many different angles because there's many different people out there. So all we're trying to do is just to reach people from where we can, and all of our views are valid. Because we're all looking at the same thing from different angles, so we're gonna be seeing the same thing, but from a different perspective. And that's all it is in life. That technically we're not wrong. It's just another way you're looking at it that you can see the world from. Yeah. And so, Yattepia, any closing, anything that you like to add on before we shift? You don't have to.
No, I was trying to think. There's so many things I want to say. I'll go on for a long time, so I think it's better just to thank you for allowing me on your show, and also thank the ancestors for allowing this to happen, for us to be in one place, to have these discussions so people can hear, as you say, diverse thoughts and perceptions and perspectives from many of us on your show. Tutsahwur, thank you very much.
Okay, and you're welcome to come back on next week to give you a little input if you so choose.
Oh, thank you.
And as for myself, I said the topic is quite a broad kind of a topic, and it's one really, right, that makes you have to look at yourself really, because I say the system basically force us really, right, in a sense of dishonesty. As I said, from a child, my dad used to say certain things to me, so I know that I was coming from a household that had some value and principle there, and at the time, but as I said, we might not appreciate what was given then, but as we grow and we see how we turn out in society, that some people just don't care. They don't care if they hurt people, they don't care what they say or do. It's just that I want and I'm going to get it. I don't really care of the destruction of the children I leave behind. And we have to be honest about our actions sometimes, really, right, that if they carry consequences, honest enough to recognize that we're causing pain to people, and we don't, do unto others what you would expect them to do to you. So on that, I want to say Tutsahwur to KaSheta per Nebfest for doing our current fairs. Unfortunately, she had to kind of leave she kind of dropped off the internet connection or something. And so we're looking forward to seeing her again on our next show. To Biksaa and Yattepia, we give thanks for you being on the show and look forward again to you being on the show. And for my co-host, Yattepia, again, we're just saying Tutsahwur for anyone who's listening out there.
Yes, Tutsahwur and Irihuru.
Yeah, and we give thanks again for Bless for giving us this space on this platform, and for the Makaru, for bringing this awareness to our consciousness, that we're able to kind of express ourselves the way that we are. There is a lot to learn and to understand, and you'll get to understand more by coming into the initiation. Obviously, with this is not like everything that you would learn, but it goes a lot deeper than this. So, it's for me, it's a stepping block, really, right, to try to elevate myself, and I appreciate this space. And I'm gonna play you our signing out tune, and this is by the one Chronics.
Listen to me now, brother.
Where you stand,
Contradicting yourself. Yeah.
Chronics Albarosa tell them say.
Listen to me now.
Contradiction is heartless. One love and one heart where the heart there. Nowadays you no cool if you no heartless. Flashy with a 9 like you lawless. Like justice I buy out a wallet. Well that a 6 for a 9 and a 9. You know the waste then a sentence to life car.
Contradiction global, madness taking over. Too much man in a mix up, one bag a mix up, Rasta and a lips up.
Contradiction global, still good conquer evil. David still sugar lion, me go on all a vibe, yeah. Well, Margarita no flankers, where bullets are run, pum pum pum. Who I call them big shots there? They might do it from a mansion. Slowly, like cancer spread out. All got them take out. Politician and gunman a link. So contradiction, run the thing, yeah.
A contradiction global, a madness taking over. Too much man in a mix up, one bag a mix up, Rasta and a lips up.
Contradiction global, still good conquer evil. David still sugar lion, me go on all a vibe, yeah. The contradiction is global.
Till I hear us up alright. Every day I.
Yeah, yeah. Comic Salvador, so tell them.
Yeah, na.
We tell them right away.
Hear them talking positive. Inside and not to the top.
Ojai and Hiriru to ones and ones out there, and we look forward to seeing you or to hearing from you in our next show. And so it's Biksaa and Yattepia from representing the Earth Center. We say Hiriru and Duawu for listening.
Too many idolize badness and slackness. Island in the sun just falling in a darkness. One love and one heart where the heart there. Nowadays you must be heartless.